All right, we should be live. Well, hopefully everybody had a lovely Christmas. So I want to wish everybody that's hanging out in the YouTube chat Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Yeah, I mean, we should have wished all our Jewish friends Happy Hanukkah, although I think that's already passed us by. And then, of course, next Sunday, right, is the big day. New Year's. We just close the book on 2021. We just move on with 2022. That is going to be the year where the world finally gets back to normal, right? 2020, probably not. I've given up on it. Things ever being normal again. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's not a bad plan, but I was sitting here. It's weird, you know, for I think the last monthly chat we had really didn't have any like big Linux releases to talk about. But this month, it seems like everybody pushed out a new version of their distribution right here at the end of the year, because I noticed, you know, Manjaro had a release, Elementary had a release, React OS, which, you know, doesn't release that often, had a release, Pop OS. They can't. Let's see. No, it's Pulse Audio.
Our good old Pulse Audio.
They can hear you now.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, guys.
Yeah, for sure they can hear you now. But we'll wait for the confirmation. The problem is OBS chooses the default desktop audio, which should be the motherboard audio, the desktop audio from the computer. But for some reason it wasn't. I don't know why.
Okay, they're saying they can hear us now.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that is very weird. Because it looked like it was set to the right channel, but it wasn't. I can't figure out OBS or Pulse Audio anymore. I've given up.
Well,
I'm ready to move back to Windows.
We're just waiting for Pipewire. Well,
Yeah, Pipewire is going to solve it all.
Pipewire is gonna solve it all by emulating Pulse Audio. You know that. Yeah.
So Pulse Audio and Jack are a problem, so we're just going to create Pipewire, which is just a front end to Pulse Audio and Jack.
Well, it's not
And that's
really
kinda
front end.
It's kind of
it's
no, it's not
emulator. It pretends it's.
It pretends to be.
It's far worse.
But does it work? Yeah, that was.
Technically, it does work. Just how well, that's another question.
Well, I mean, technically, Pulse Audio works, right?
Yeah.
Except when it doesn't.
A lot of people on Fedora are saying how it works, but Fedora has always been hit or miss. Tomorrow it might not work anymore. Who knows?
Yeah, but Fedora is a very strange ecosystem because they have basically all the Red Hat technology kind of tied together. So, of course, people that love GNOME and Systemd and Pipewire and all of that, you know, are going to love Fedora because it's all kind of flat pack and all that, Fedora, you know, it's all in that one distribution.
People who are Fedora are lab rats.
Yeah.
That's what they are, by definition.
It's when you try to take any of that technology and put it on a different distribution is the problem. On Fedora, it tends to work. Right? Yeah, because when I install Fedora, you know, it's a pretty okay distribution. Like I can get work done on Fedora. I could happily run Fedora forever. if I didn't like rolling release distributions.
I can use Fedora for a week, then it will implode on me. Every
Really?
time.
You break it?
It breaks on me. I don't know.
Oh, you don't break it, it just breaks itself.
It's either what I'm doing in combination with it being a broken distro, because I just can't get it to work more than a week. Never. It breaks itself. Either I break it, while I do the same things on Ubuntu, Arch, OpenSUSE, on anything else, it doesn't break. On Fedora, it breaks. So either Fedora is broken, or all other distros just that much more really lenient.
Well,
I will say it's different. Well, I say it's gotten better depending on when you tried Fedora. I remember a few years back, it was a lot more experimental sometimes. When they push a release out, things weren't quite as well put together.
Only Fedora that has ever worked for me was Fedora Silverblue. And that's because you basically cannot break it. Unless you are really good at breaking.
Uh-oh. Well, we hear Murray.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, we've got you.
Oh, good. I had my system crash on me 3 days ago. My vaunted Proxmox ZFSE never crashes, but last time it went south. Turns out it's a bad SSD. They don't give you any warning. SSDs go, they just freeze and die. If I had a 3.5-inch hard disk go and went into read mode first, and you get a bit of warning, but SSDs just absolutely nothing. So
yeah, well, and I always talk about how, Arch Linux is stable, or Arco, which I'm on now. Heck, I got a kernel panic for Christmas Eve, a couple of nights ago. I was like, are you kidding me? I reboot, and there it is. So I was like, no.
Yeah. That's Arch.
I had just done an update, and it was like 350 packages in the update, and not on this machine, the one at home. So it wasn't like I was, about to do any real work. It's just, damn.
I have a laptop that I take over to the mall and use outside, and I put Manjaro on it 3 weeks ago, and I love it. I've always liked Manjaro, so I'm going to stick with it for now. I've got 3 weeks of updates waiting. I did a release update, so in one day I had 200 updates. A week later I had 57 updates. A day later one, and then another one. So I've had 4 days in the 3 weeks that have updates, and I'm ready to do it right now to see if I scream and whatever.
And some of that's going to be the desktop you chose. Are you doing Plasma?
Yeah.
That's
a
probably
lot. It's Plasma and a lot of live stuff, live this, live that.
Yeah. If you'd have done XFCE, you wouldn't have nearly as many programs updating.
You wouldn't have updates, period.
No, they update every 4 years or so, 5 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Including, I think they still have a security bug in their screensaver.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, if it locks and it screensaver, if you start typing, at least the last time I saw it, it basically goes, and until the password field shows up, it writes in what you had selected before.
I remember, hearing about that. Surely they fixed that by now.
I think less than a year ago, I saw it last time happen to someone.
So just start.
Yeah.
I just started my updates now, so we'll see how long it takes, or if it crashes on.
Oh, the updates from Pac-Man usually, I do like a 200, 300 package update, and it'll take less than 5 minutes. It goes.
Depends on how quick your internet is.
Yeah.
And if you enable parallel downloads.
Yeah.
Well, make sure, because Manjaro, I'm not sure
doesn't do
all of them don't. Some of them, maybe some of the community ones do, but I don't think the GNOME or the Manjaro or the KDE ones do.
Here we go. Error. Failed retrieving the Qt5 web engine 5.15.7.2.
That would mean your mirror isn't correctly.
Yeah, resync Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
the database, but not the file itself.
Maybe
I
try
had this the last week too, like key issues and mirror issues. That's
Yeah,
like
try
a
it.
common Arch thing. Sorry, yeah.
try a SYYU and,
Yeah.
and see, you know. And if that doesn't work, you may try a SCC just to clear out the cache completely.
Or just
That's what I issued. That's SYYU. That's what I did the
try
first time.
disabling the first mirror. That's what.
Okay.
normally
Well, I'll have
happens.
to learn how to do that. I don't know who to do that.
They don't use reflectors, do
nano
they?
/ etsy / pacman.conf / no, it's something Manjaro.
I'll wait.
It's somewhere in Etsy file.
Yeah, it's in Etsy / pacman.d.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look it up while we're working here and try it a bit later.
Well,
I did when I recovered my Proxmox system. I have my applications in Nix. I had 350 applications and a script to do it. It took 24 minutes to get them back up. So within half an hour, I had all my applications back on, which is kind of nice.
The only thing with Manjaro, because they're a little bit out of sync with the standard Arch repositories, is sometimes, depending on how much you use the AUR, you could run into situations where your AUR packages depend on packages that are not in Manjaro just yet.
And that is a standard problem with anything that is depending on the mainline repository.
Well, I have to disagree because I had one of these issues last week. Like one C++ lib package failed due to a compiled version in Polybar, I think it was. So it was relying on that C++ library, which I figured out. So I started researching on it, and 20 minutes later, after I found my answer in one of Eric's Arco forums, I have seen the update already. So I have to say actually thanks to these people who maintain things like this, because that was like 20 minutes and it was solved. And I've never seen something so fast before, like the Arco team.
Well, there is a reason Pop! OS breaks because of Ubuntu repository, or there is a reason why Garuda breaks because of Arch repo, because dependencies get mixed up. That's why every distribution should have their own repositories.
Yeah, one of the things Arco does well, and Manjaro too, is anything they know could potentially be a problem for them if they don't manage themselves, they just put it in their own repositories. That way, when you say it was a quick fix, it's because he's already managing that package for Arco anyway, right?
He's just managing the whole tree of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're gonna break.
Because if he had to depend on a package maintainer for Arch to fix that, well, then he's just waiting on somebody else at that point, right?
Because that's the reason why Linus's desktop broke on Pop! OS. Because they had a negative interaction between systemd and i386 packages, because there was a bunch of bullshit happening that wasn't controlled by Pop! OS team, because it happened in mainline Ubuntu repositories.
And I do wonder, have the Pop! OS team ever really considered moving from Ubuntu base to Arch? That would solve a lot of problems, in my opinion.
It would be same problem, different name. That's all it would be. What would happen is when Arch would update, it would break because same problem. Reality, what they need to do, they need to have their own full repositories. Same way, that's why Ubuntu copies Debian repositories, not just use Debian repositories. That's the reason. Because then they have control over what updates when. So that packages you have.
Also, Ubuntu wants its own repositories because they may want a package to be updated once every 4 years. But
then again, at the same time, the Pop! OS guys update some packages really soon, but others do not have it at all, and that's okay. Problem is when that chain breaks. When, let's say, Ubuntu updates something but Pop! OS doesn't, then it will break because it will
Yeah.
apt will try to resolve the issue so that the package that you try to install right now works even if anything else doesn't. That's how apt works.
Yeah.
How apt always worked.
Well, I've noticed too with distributions, different distributions have different priorities. For example, like Pop! OS, Linux Mint. Why are they not maintaining their own repositories? It's because they're busy working on building desktop environments, right? That's kind of where they put all their.
Why they don't? I'm gonna tell you why they don't maintain.
Where Manjaro, we talked about Manjaro has their own repositories. It's because they're not trying to recreate KDE Plasma. It's already out there. They don't need to do.
Let me tell you why they're trying to.
I just updated the mirrors and it's now working. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, it
gonna
turns out
tell
all you have
why-
to do is just update your mirror so you can update
Yeah.
your system, which you should always do.
Yeah, Linux is so easy, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna explain why Mint and Pop! OS don't maintain their own repositories, because it would actually be a very good thing and a very easy thing. It's simple, because they think they don't have to, but they need to, because otherwise everything will suddenly break, and like it did, because you don't have control. And simple, it's that infrastructure you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
It is few $100 you don't have to pay for, or possibly few $1,000 a month.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
How
when you're
many-
talking about that many
How
packages.
many mirrors does Ubuntu have?
Doesn't the
There's a
Ubuntu license actually restrict
They could easily copy. What does
Just-
Ubuntu do? It copies from Debian.
I was about to say you just recreate the Debian repo, which
Basically, copies
last
from
I
Debian.
doesn't the Debian repos now have nearly 50,000 packages or something? It would be a crazy.
The last account was like 62,000.
It's a crazy amount of packages that you would have to.
A lot.
Yeah.
I saw Ubuntu rebuild a couple of days, and I saw it well after it started, and it was still 40,000 packages just for x86.
Yeah.
64. So you need to. There are at least 5 different architectures Ubuntu supports for.
I mean, when you're talking about cost, I mean, you're going to have multiple servers, right? It's not going to be one machine
would need to
handling.
have- You need to have servers at least for Europe, Asia,
Right, and the US,
and
yeah.
possibly Australia.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Otherwise, the Australians are going to have very slow downloads.
Otherwise, they would have much more luck connecting to the moon.
Yeah. Because Australia is really not close to anyone, right?
That thing isn't close to anyone.
Uh,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you just want your distribution to be popular, just put a repository in India.
well, that would make sense.
Yeah, and that's Asia for you.
Yeah.
We do that cover whole Asia. And you go, Europe needs one, definitely, because Europe is big. And a lot of users are there.
So, I mean,
US is big.
you can understand why smaller projects are not
Yeah.
going to invest in that kind of cost
But
to
at the
maintain.
same time, Pop! OS isn't a small project.
No, Pop isn't. I mean, they obviously have income coming in, but not necessarily from a distribution. They have income coming in mainly because they sell computers.
Well, the computers that come with Pop! OS.
Yeah.
It is basically one of their sources of income, and they should have done a better job.
Yeah, but you do wonder
It is
how
what
many people
creates
get
the
a
users. at
how
the
many
end of the
people
day.
get a System 76 computer and then wipe out Pop! OS and put something else on it.
A lot.
Gen
Because
2?
you no, I'm talking about Windows. How many people you think buy a System 76 computer and then put Windows on it?
But there are
Well,
also
at least
a lot
one
of
here.
people who buy System 76 laptops because of Pop! OS. That's
Yeah,
also clear.
of course, yeah.
It is as much as user generating
Yeah.
a stream than anything they can
Yeah.
do.
But it's not like Macs. You know, when you buy a MacBook, you're really buying it for the Mac operating system. Where
Yeah.
you know, System 76. The big selling point really isn't Pop! OS. It's mainly it's a computer that doesn't come with Windows. At least I'm not paying the Microsoft tax, and I'm not going.
So my Manjaro update did a little
Yep.
bit and stopped again. Manjaro.
Probably slow mirrors. There is
Yeah,
a command to get the fastest mirrors.
That's what it said. It said run Pac-Man mirrors again. So you're absolutely right. I don't know how you read that.
Yeah, and different Arch-based distributions have different programs, but usually they'll have a helper program where you run something at the command line and just tell it, give me the fastest 5 mirrors, the fastest 10 mirrors, whatever it is, and it will go ahead and edit your pacman.conf for you, so you don't have to do it.
Or you edit it yourself.
Or you can manually copy it and paste.
I believe they allow you to select specific mirrors.
Yeah.
So more Googling. But I got my 350 Nix packages installed in Debian. I've got them running on Arch. And then I ran the same script the same way. So everything looks the same on my Arch system as it does on my Debian system. And so it's distro agnostic pretty much.
Yep.
And I had 290 applications. So I decided to try and make it look as much as a rolling release as possible. So I went through user bin and picked out everything there. I've got glibc and systemd and pulse audio and core utils. So it's as close to a rolling release as I can get. It doesn't have the latest kernel, doesn't have the latest drivers, and it doesn't have the latest KDE desktop. But other than that, it's pretty much a rolling release now on it.
Yeah. Well, you don't necessarily need the latest kernel or latest drivers unless you got really new equipment. I mean,
yeah, I don't really want. I don't want them. I want things to stay. Those things to stay the same.
I mean, the one thing I hate about running Arch is I never really need a new kernel or a new NVIDIA driver. So please just stop giving me that dang thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what always breaks, right?
Yeah.
It's usually the kernel or the graphics driver is going to cause a problem. Just stop it.
Yeah, the Manjaro architecture has a ZFS version now, and it breaks when the kernel updates. So they tell you not to use it because it breaks when the kernel updates, right?
Now we've got a poll in the chat.
Yeah, it's for me getting a darker shirt. Unfortunately, guys, every single shirt I own is a plain white shirt, and I am currently sitting in front of a window right now. That's the problem.
It's blinding.
Somebody in the YouTube chat was asking a question. Does Tails, the distribution Tails, have a set of package requirements before it can be allowed to be installed? Now, I'm assuming they're asking to install it like on a physical machine like you would any other distribution. That's typically not what Tails is meant for.
I don't think you can actually install
Tails. So yeah, that's not what that distribution is designed for. It's not something you install on a computer and it's always there. It's meant to be on a USB stick, and it's portable. You take it with you and you use it when you need anonymity. Right, that's what that's designed for. As far as package requirements to put it on a USB stick and run it off a USB stick, you just burn it to a USB stick. That's all you need. And then on the computer that you're plugging it into, you may have to go in the BIOS and make sure that the USB stick is first in the boot order. Otherwise, it may just skip the USB stick and boot off the hard drive again. Let's see. Anything else in the YouTube chat? No, looks like pretty tame discussion this week. Last week, there's a lot of heated debates going on.
I can
last month.
Talk about Ubuntu 2110, the high memory usage. Remember the 1.5 gigabyte? Mm-hmm. It's not what it seems. It's actually pretty good. It's because of your choice of ZFS, the root file system. It's using the extras cache for ZFS.
Yep.
Right.
What it does, when it system boots, ZFS looks at your memory and divides it in two and says, I can use half of this for cache.
Yeah.
But if an application needs the RAM, it will free it up for the
Yeah, on that video, I forgot I chose ZFS for the installation. I usually choose Extend 4, but I went back and with Extend 4, it uses like 800.
I use 645.
Yeah, I mean, it's about normal for GNOME, or maybe I would say maybe a little less than what
GNOME is actually have a slightly lower memory.
It does seem
like mainline GNOME. That has been a big thing for.
Because if you use vanilla GNOME on like straight Debian or Fedora, I will say they use more RAM than Ubuntu
Yeah,
does.
there are some patches for GNOME that are applied by.
My existing system I'm on right now is ZFS, and the cache right now gives you good statistics. Hang on. 347 megabytes for recently used, and 300 and some odd for frequently used. So it's about 1 gig, but it keeps a historical record. I've got 32 gigs of RAM. At one point, it used 15.6 gigs of RAM for cache on there. That's the high watermark on the way. So it does make good use of memory for caching whenever it can.
Yeah. ZFS always wants some amount of RAM for L1 cache.
Yeah.
And it's Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell right now, it is all configurable. So especially if you're doing a server or a NAS with NVMe SSDs, just don't enable L1 cache from RAM because it technically can get slower than with especially if you do some sort of a Z-RAID. It can be slower than your SSDs working together.
Okay. The guy in the chat that was asking about tills, he says he needs to clarify himself because I guess we misunderstood the question. He says, I tried to install some of the applications I typically would install on Ubuntu or Debian, but it would not allow me to do so. I mean, it is based off of Debian, so you should have access to the Debian repositories.
Maybe
now
you need to update.
Yeah.
So the app update so it gets
Right.
the repositories. Because
And keep in mind, if you're running a live USB
cache
stick,
might be cleaned.
you're only getting that application installed for that session.
Yeah.
When you're done, it's gone again, unless you enable persistence, which
kind of defeats the point.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. If you're going to do that, just know that at that point, it's going to start saving config files and stuff like that, history, and then right, yeah.
And basically you didn't get anything by using Tails.
Right.
Okay, so I saw a comment earlier where somebody was asking for our 2022 predictions. Well, let me list off my predictions for you guys. One thing, I'm inevitably going to install Gen 2 on one more stupid machine. Arch Linux is going to update every single day. There may be a new Ubuntu release. Fedora will delay the release of Fedora 36. OpenSUSE will still continue to exist for some god unknown reason. Slackware might actually hit a release.
No, they're close.
Yeah, they're close.
They're already in beta.
They're close. Somebody's going to post an angry comment on Reddit and get downvoted to hell. Another person is just going to post a screenshot of their desktop on the completely wrong subreddit and probably get 1,000 upvotes. DT is probably going to make another video. Big Pod might still lose more hair.
Definitely gonna happen.
Yep. Stefan here might still have a green background, but he might actually learn that there's this thing called chroma filters in OBS.
I know.
What do you want to? You want him to throw up a Gen 2 logo on that thing? Or
Oh hell yeah!
I can. Whatever you want me to. Let me get ahead there. Ay, man.
Well, we should talk about something. I mean, those were all really out there predictions, right? Arch updating every day. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about jobs, because someone here recently took a major position with Microsoft and he wants to go ahead and announce it here.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
How did you know about my career?
If you worked at Microsoft, you could afford a darker shirt than that.
Oh, I probably could.
Well,
Big Pod, you want to make an announcement, sir?
yeah, as some of you may know, I have gotten a job in the last month, so now I'm gonna say it right now. It's not Microsoft. It's none of the big companies. It's none of the big names. Most of you probably never heard of this company. It's called Slim.ai.
I actually think I've heard of that one.
No.
If you work if you work in with containers, you might have heard of it. You might have heard of Docker Slim.
Yeah,
tool.
I have heard of that one.
Yeah, that's the company that's now
Yeah.
behind it. Docker Slim is an open source tool, and the company was set up to support development of it and to make additional tools surrounding it, like the SaaS platform we are creating. And I started with a position of a developer experience engineer. So what I do, I write examples.
No.
Yeah.
And they don't require you to actually use Windows at all, right?
Definitely not.
Very cool.
I use Linux. People use Linux.
Yeah, but don't
it's a
you?
tool for Linux, after
Yeah,
all.
but if you ever do change career paths and go to work for Microsoft, you're going to be out of shape because you haven't used
No.
Windows in so long.
No, actually, I know a few people who work at Microsoft, and I only know one of them who actually runs Windows.
I'm about to say I know a lot of them run Mac.
A lot of them run Mac, a lot of them run Linux as well. So that's not actually that kind of a thing. Microsoft isn't crazy about that stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, if you are a developer of Windows, you're gonna have to run Windows. That's logical. But everywhere else, there isn't such a requirement to run Windows.
Well, that's cool that that you're earning a paycheck now,
Yeah.
and that you're kind of leveraging all that Linuxy
Yeah.
knowledge into some money.
Do you do any coding, or is it all DevOps?
Well, I do coding. I write examples. So
Yeah,
Uh,
you
if
write
you-
examples in your VS Code text editor because VS Code has
Yes.
this one thing called amazing syntax highlighting for YAML files.
I don't write YAML files. I
You should
write
try it.
actual examples, code examples.
What text editor have you used that didn't have syntax highlighting for YAML files? I'm curious.
Emacs doesn't have it enabled by default.
Notepad on Windows.
Emacs doesn't have anything enabled by default, but that doesn't mean you can't, with one little line of code, turn it on.
Nano, for any distribution that's not Arch Linux or Fedora 35, does not support syntax highlighting for YAML files.
Does it not? Surely there's a plugin for it.
No.
I think it does support it, actually.
There's no way Nano doesn't. Yeah.
It doesn't
As
support
much as I
YAML
hate
files.
Nano, I know it supports syntax highlighting for
Well-
YAML.
Well, I guess it's time that we actually check this. Does anybody have a VM of like Debian or anything around with a copy of Nano? I guarantee you, if you've installed Linux, you probably have Nano on your system. Let's pull up a YAML file and see if we actually have syntax highlighting.
I'm just going to do a quick search. Because it's how to enable syntax highlighting for YAML files in Nano. So there is an article here giving me the commands to do it, so it is possible.
It's not enabled by default.
Well, I didn't.
They have to tell you. You had to look up how to enable it.
You don't enable syntax highlighting for every language imaginable. I mean, that's
yes,
bloat.
you do,
You
because
let
that
the
is the
user
definition of
decide
bloat.
what the. No, that's not.
You should. It's only 30 megabytes of memory usage.
Yeah. It's like, I never program in, Fortran. Why would I want Fortran syntax highlighting, right? If I want it, I'll go get it. Yeah.
Well,
All
yeah,
right,
something like
one of
that.
these days, you're just accidentally going to open up a Fortran file, and you're going to have syntax highlighting, and you're going to be like, man, this looks beautiful.
Who would want to open a Fortran file? Tell me that.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, now that you say it, I don't think I've ever accidentally stumbled across I'm on somebody's GitHub and they wrote something in Fortran and I'm trying to use it. That never happens.
Well, just to tell you guys, in the last month, I either wrote or edited examples in C#, Elixir, Golang,
Elixir.
Haskell, Java, Node.js,
Oh, good.
PHP, Python,
My favorite.
2 and 3, in Ruby, Rust, and Rust. Those are
Okay.
the languages I wrote. Either wrote
Not
or
a single
edited
one of
examples
those.
in.
Not a single one of those is the master programming of x86 assembly.
Well, that's not
Yeah,
what you're
but-
gonna put in a container.
When
and
you're
make
talking
an
about, especially
REST API
web,
with.
when you're talking about web dev stuff, you're gonna use,
That's what
you know,
you
Node.js, PHP, Python. You're not gonna use
Reality is you're gonna-
assembly
you're
for
gonna use
anything.
one of those languages I just listed. Those are the languages
Right.
you're probably going to use to make a REST API, which is what I was
Right.
concerning myself with most writing or editing examples. Those
Uh,
are the
so-
languages.
Does this mean that you have a well-written example and documentation of what a monad is?
No,
Okay.
I have an example of how to make a REST API with Haskell using Scott.
that doesn't tell me what a monad is.
I don't know either.
Well, you're never gonna get the real answer.
Monad is a thing, apparently.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing.
That's usually what people tell you. It's just a thing. It doesn't really have any real meaning.
Yeah.
Even the Haskell guys, they can't explain it.
You need to ask a proper mathematician what a monad
Okay.
is, and that will probably tell
So,
you that you are
Big
crazy
Pod.
to even consider it.
Big Pod, I have a challenge for you.
What?
When you're writing your next example,
Yeah.
you need to completely and entirely revoke the Z character and see if you can write an entire example without using the letter Z anywhere inside of it.
Okay, let me see if I can. I can even check my examples if there is any Z character in there. There is no Z's in any of, or at least in the Haskell example. There is no Z's.
Okay, that's a start. The next one is the X character.
Huh. That might be a bit harder. No X characters.
Okay, what about the C character?
C. Yeah, that would be harder.
Okay. So we're getting somewhere. Now, the reason why I asked for these three characters specifically was just to check to see how many times you accidentally screwed up your copy paste.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
0 times because I learned. I actually learned these languages to write. At least
I knew he was setting you up for something. I just didn't know what he was doing here. But I was like, why is he
learned
picking these specific characters? I knew there was a reason. Because wouldn't you just start A, B, C? Like, he picked certain things. And yes, Crazy Chicken in the chat, a monad is a monoid in the category of an endofunctor.
That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that one yet.
And someone was asking about, how can you use Xmonad and not know what a monad is? Well, I know that Xmonad, they have a monad in the code, and it's called the Xmonad. And that's what the window manager is named after, because it runs that X monad.
It's
So there you go.
So you're saying that X monad's one sole purpose
Is to run a monad.
is to run this monad to make us all question what the hell a monad actually is.
yeah, something
Right.
like that. It's
Okay.
it's
Thank you.
some bullshit.
Got the Gen 2 green screen.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you.
Well,
Solar for you.
I gotta say that among those, many languages are quite nice, with exclusion of Haskell, because it's a functional language. I hate functional language.
Functional programming is weird, right? I don't
hate
like it either. I can't stand it. Other than
I'm not a fan of Golang, even though it's the main language of the company.
yeah. Have you convinced them to do anything at all with Emacs Lisp yet?
No, not gonna happen. Can you do a REST API with it?
So,
Or Common Lisp, you probably could.
Probably.
Yeah.
so you've been using Emacs Lips. How's that been going? What have you been doing with that?
Well, last month I told you, I was playing a lot with it, and I played with it for a few days after that, and then I just kind of let it go. But yeah, I was just mainly digging into a lot of the functions in Emacs, trying to learn Emacs Lisp a little bit.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd like to get to the point where I could, write my own Emacs plugins and, just
Do you slurp?
things like that.
Do you slurp
Oh.
and barf?
So you're saying
You
Apache?
slurp and barf. Have you heard that term yet?
Slurp and barf. No, I don't know that one.
That's for it's sort of like cut and paste for S expressions in Lisp.
Okay.
There's a plugin called Lispy, I think. You can bring that in, and it makes it easier to cut and paste code on there. So,
but the more I dive into Lisp, the more I like it, just because everything's a list in Lisp. Lisp actually stands for, I think, list processing.
Yes.
Where literally everything in the code is nothing but lists.
The code is data.
Yeah. It's one of those things, once you think about it, it makes sense. It's like, why isn't every programming language written like this? It kind of, it's old school because Lisp, a lot of the various Lisp dialects date back decades. It's kind of like the old Unix philosophy of the 60s and 70s when they were creating the Unix operating system. Everything's a file, right? That was such a neat concept. Where you break everything down to this one thing, and
Ultimately, it's a file, and you can read its memory output.
yeah, everything on your Linux system is a file. That's why you can pipe everything into everything else. Is because all of that is just data that can just be redirected wherever you want it to go.
There's a wonderful video of, I think, Kernighan on his desktop in the 70s explaining the pipe somewhere in those computer tech archives on YouTube. It's a fun thing to watch.
Oh, cool. And you're talking about Kernighan. You talking about what's his first name?
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
The guy, one of the guys that helped create Unix and C and awk. He's the K in awk. Yeah.
So I was looking at OBS and Emacs, and there's a plugin for OBS and for Emacs where you can hook the two of them together. I'm not sure why one would do that. I think they were going to look at the buffer directly in OBS or something like that.
I would imagine it was probably had something to do if you used Emacs as your window manager.
It's purely for picking up Emacs buffers within OBS. That's really
why do you want to do that?
Why?
Well, that actually would make sense. It's because your buffers are not always on the same screen in the same place. And that would make sense just to use it as a video source. That way it's always capturing.
That's why you do Windows sources.
Yeah, but sometimes your buffers are not visible.
Some people just don't want to open up a second Emacs window.
No, I actually think that's pretty neat. I may actually play with that now that somebody told me that's because when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like to me, I'm thinking, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just have buffers as a source.
Like you could pipe text into the video and display it on the screen dynamically, if I get this right. Yeah.
The only problem with that plugin is that it of course adds to the master process that is Emacs because it's still not multi-threaded.
Wow.
So when Emacs crashes, it can actually take OBS down too.
How? How is Emacs not multi-threaded?
That's a good question.
It's still on the to-do list. They just, for one thing, this has been a situation with Emacs for years, and for a long time they were kind of just, well, it doesn't need to be multi-threaded. Well, like this whole multi-threaded fashion thing, it'll go away eventually, and people will forget about it. No. We need multi-threading.
Everything should be multi-threaded now.
Yeah, now it's gotten to the point where it's a serious problem, and they know they're eventually going to have to make Emacs multi-threaded.
Only thing that should be multi-threaded is your 10-line bash script. Everything else should be multi-threaded.
Your bash script should be multi-threaded, sir.
Well, if it's more than 10 lines, yeah.
If you're writing a bash script that needs to be multi-threaded, you should have wrote it in Python.
Yeah, and then wrote the multi-threading code. All the multi-threads and all that. Oh. Last time I wrote multi-threaded code, that was fun.
That's one thing, I like, scripting with bash, and I like viewing other people's bash scripts, but when I open up a bash script and it's like 5,000 lines long, I just wonder why that person wasted all that time. Well, it's like, you could have done this in half the time with Python.
I know someone who likes to do that.
Who?
Martin Wimpress.
Yeah. He does everything with bash.
he likes to do a lot of things with Bash. He made a video game with Bash.
Ah,
Yeah.
My hero.
Well,
I don't
not
see why you
challenge,
can't.
But,
Yeah, I mean,
he made
you can write video games in
Bash.
Emacs Lisp, you can write it in Bash. So
He made a game in Bash. It's on his GitHub.
you know,
NC
what kind of
Alien
game is it?
Attack. It's a shoot 'em up. You know, the old alien thing.
Uh,
So
He
Yeah, go ahead,
also
Mert.
made a
I
whole thing.
updated my Manjaro Mariners, and it actually had finished, so there's nothing left to do, and it works.
Yay.
And it only took, 5 minutes, like you said. Didn't take
Cool.
long at all.
yeah, I mean, the Arch mirrors are usually good. Like
Now
Arch,
that
well,
AOR stuff.
yeah. I would say, Apt is fast. Pac-Man is fast. DNF
He's slow.
is slow. Zipper, I don't know. I don't use Zipper.
Yum is slow.
Emerge is like the worst thing ever because it doesn't matter what the downloads.
Emerge is relatively fast. Emerge is relatively fast.
Yeah, the download is the compiling. So-
Emerge is wicked fast, sir.
If you do apt source, it's just as fast as Emerge.
Yeah. Oh, I was just throwing Emerge in there for Josh. He was going to feel left out if I didn't
Of
mention.
course. I'm still compiling a kernel on the Pi, by the way.
So,
For how long?
Since
3 months?
3 months.
So the thing is, by the time I'm finished compiling a kernel for the Pi, the next there's an update available. So and it takes me about 3 days to compile a kernel.
So there's a new kernel available.
Yeah, there's a new kernel available.
You
I mean,
have a script.
ultimately, I know that I could just, overclock my Pi instead of underclocking it. So that way I can actually use it with the power over Ethernet.
To be fair, there's a new kernel available like every couple of days.
Yeah.
So it's not like
Well, actually, James doesn't use the absolute latest kernel.
Well, you see, I'm pulling from Linux next. That's why.
Okay, yeah. That then is absolute latest kernel. So it's your own fault.
It is my own fault. But you know what? I've already made several upstream pull requests that improve doing this. I've cut my compiling time by 20%.
in the chat, we've got someone saying turn on the fast servers on DNF. And Brew is straight messed up,
Okay.
though. So people have told me that there is a way to speed up DNF. How do I do this, Josh?
Okay, so-
let me first explain this, because you're gonna learn something that is actually very, very gonna taught you why you should and shouldn't do this. Depending on who you ask, they say you don't. The masters in Fedora say don't do this. I'm gonna explain why. Because,
Well, otherwise it would be a default, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's how their mirror system works. They have a server which has a REST API which guesses, at the very best it guesses which server is closest to you, which mirror, and it sends that to you, so you download from that. It's called Mirror Manager, and that thing happens normally, and it has certain parameters by which it guesses, and their latency and bandwidth and stuff like that, and it does that completely great. What happens when you do actually use fast? What happens is it actually goes and forgets all that logic and just says which one is closest to you by ping.
Yep.
And you can have good luck, or you can have freaking shit luck. Exactly
Yeah.
the same, like without enabling that.
Okay,
Now what-
so in order to set up this configuration option that to answer DT's question, you edit the dnf.conf file. It's
Yeah.
found in /etsy like it should be. /etsy/dnf/dnf.conf. And you basically just add best mirror equals or fastest equal.
Fast
I think it's-
mirror, fast underscore mirror, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Or
it's
fastest.
it's in like the DNF config examples. It's
And someone in the chat is giving us a a package to install.
No,
Yum-plugin
don't use the
fastest mirror.
plugin.
Don't do
Yeah,
The
there's a
plugin's
plugin. I just
depreciated.
wanted to say.
That function is built into DNF.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You just have to enable it in the config file, and basically,
you need to add fastest mirror together. No space, no underscore, nothing. Equals 1. So fastest mirror equals 1.
okay, yeah.
Let's
And
see
basically,
if we
what
can
happens is that then every time you resync your mirrors, it will actually slow you down. It doesn't it doesn't actually make like the actual downloads faster. However, if you want your DNF package manager to be faster, first of all, realize that DNF is written in Python, which is the world's fastest programming language.
Yeah, but what does that got to do with download speeds?
And the reason why the download speeds are failing is simply because you're not physically close enough to a mirror. That's really why. Because they're
selected.
Yeah.
I have a mirror in the next country over by probably very close to Stefan.
Yeah, there's one in Vienna.
The longer
from
you
the
run,
university.
the longer you run the Fedora system, DNF will slowly figure out which mirror is actually physically the closest to you from every time it resyncs to repositories, which happens every 24 hours.
Yeah, but that didn't happen for me. It never happened.
Well, because you found the fastest one the first time.
Yeah, and it's actually not fast.
Yeah, and DNF is also definitely not actually that slow.
Yeah, it's not actually that slow.
DNF did parallel downloads before any other package manager, just to let you know. It defaults to 3, and RPMs are typically smaller than most other binary tarballs, so you don't necessarily notice it. But
I was just pointing out that the fact that DNF is written in Python has nothing to do with slow download speeds, because the world's best package manager, Emerge, is actually also written in Python.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that
a lot of package managers use Python.
The reason why I'm saying that DNF seems slow for some people is because Python has this wonderful database interaction where sometimes it takes a second.
Yeah,
and that's what adds the slowness feeling to DNF.
Yeah, I don't think people would complain about a second. I think people notice
the download speed. For me, download speeds are basically super slow. I don't know if they're connected to the moon or something.
It could be. It's where you are in the world and what. Yeah.
I have the closest mirror to me is in the next country over, in Vienna.
Yeah, because it's the only mirror available for Fedora.
Maybe. There are mirrors in Europe. Quite a couple of them.
Yeah, I think there's only like 3 mirrors in Europe. There's one in Vienna. I think there's one in like Austria or somewhere out there.
Well,
that's
and
Vienna,
then there's another one in the UK.
That's Vienna.
That would be Vienna.
That's Vienna. I don't know Europe that well, okay? I live in a cornfield in Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, and
that's fine.
Ubuntu, I have a mirror basically 50 kilometers away from me.
I wonder why.
Because
is it because Canonical is in the UK?
No, I am not near UK. I am.
Yeah, he's not anywhere near.
Basically, completely other part of Europe. I'm in something called Balkans, and we have our own mirror, official mirror, set up by Arnex, which is basically doing it for Canonical.
Yeah.
And guess what? I also have a mirror for Arch near me. It's set up by my internet service provider.
Yeah, I mean, saying he's near the UK is like saying, someone in Seattle is near Florida. It's like
on
the same
other side of Europe compared to UK.
Yeah.
Balkan Peninsula. I'm on the top of that. Right near Austria, Hungary, and Italy. And Croatia on the bottom. So this was your geography lesson for today.
Someone in the chat, I don't know what part of Pac-Man requires Python. Yeah, the other day in my video I said a Pac-Man is written in Python. It's actually, there's a little bit of Python code in it, but it's technically written in, I think, C++, C or C++. What I meant to say, I knew there were a couple of package managers written in Python, and the ones I was thinking of on that video were DNF and Emerge, and I said Pac-Man, but it doesn't matter. You get the point, right? The point of that video is that Python's a great language. That was the point of that video.
So I can follow up on that a bit about Python.
Sure.
I took a look at that, and I went through my user bin, and I wrote a little script to pull out all the Python apps in there. Mm-hmm. And I found S2E, Glances, YouTube DL, Ranger, Meld, Qtile, Exodus, Bundle, Catfish, BleachBit, Tmux, Googler, Onboard, Terminator, NeoFetch, Paizo, Caliber, and Ceph, all in there, all written in Python. But my thing is, how do they distribute it? They don't put it in containers. I'm on Python 10 right now. If I write code in Python 10, I have to either
You mean 3.10?
3.10, yes,
Yeah.
3.10.
Okay. Now that makes sense.
3.10. And
We jumped ahead.
Yeah.
I'm like 15 years ahead when we are at Microsoft.
Time warp.
Well, this is the way GNOME numbers their stuff, right? We jump from 3 to 41, right? We just go ahead, Murray.
So if I want to distribute, I have to put it in a container. So why don't these guys have to put it in a container?
No, we don't have to put it in a container.
Oh, I guess.
But then you're not going to run it on a 3.6 system.
But you always have the older versions of Python.
But so I looked at these programs on
Code,
it, and how do they do that without putting a container?
Python code is supposed to be backwards compatible in the same version. So that means 10.
All the three.
3 versions also supposed to be backwards compatible.
Supposed to be.
3.1 and 3.10 should work on 3.10.
Yeah, but 3.10 won't work on 3.6.5. That's the problem.
Of course.
That's the problem.
That's why.
So how do they distribute their programs to run on all these different distributions?
That's why you have enablement
They
flags.
don't. They let the distribution maintainers
Yeah.
figure that shit
And
out.
that's what distribution maintainers figure out with patches and all that. And
What I
enablement
did,
flags and all that.
I looked at the source in PyPy for these things.
Mhm.
S2 is in Python 3, Glances in 3.3.9, YouTube DL 3.2, Ranger 3.1, Meld 3.5, Qtile 3.7, Exodus Bundle 3.0. The other ones, they don't have it. So they're all using old versions of Python. They're not writing current Python on these things. So if you
Nobody
write current,
is.
It's hard to write current Python. I mean,
Nobody
you would
writes current versions of languages many times. They're rarely you write.
so I can't write a code in Python 3.10 and distribute it to anyone.
You can, but by the time you finish it, they'll be on the new version.
You
That's the
can,
problem.
Because they're gonna most likely people will have a new version already at the runtime.
Yeah.
But that
I mean, some of
isn't-
these projects you're talking about, like the Ranger file manager, Qtile, the window manager, there's so much code to them.
7.
Yeah, they can't write something in the latest version and have it finished, until several versions later, right? As there's just some of those projects are too big of a project to be anywhere near the latest version of Python.
That's why C# does major releases. So we have once a year release. So
They do like a long-term support, or what do they do?
every other one is a long-term support for the runtime, the .NET. So we have one is this year was a major support in November, so long-term support. Next year in November, it will be a normal release. Then again, LTS in 2 years.
How long are the long-term support period?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Is it in even numbers?
I don't know. Let me check. .NET LTS.
While Big Pot is looking this up, I just want to comment to Murray here. They have these wonderful packaging formats. They're called Snap, Flatpak, and App Image, as well as Docker containers.
He knows about app images. He packages a lot of stuff for app image. Murray does.
I know he does. I know he does.
Yeah, but then you have to put in the Python runtime with those things, and they become bloated on it. And
We're replicating
No.
libraries in our containerized format.
No,
And
the
you
point of containerized formats is that everything comes with the the program, not just. What's the point?
So with Python, you don't do pip install anymore like it was designed to do. You put it in a container. But that means that the developer now has to learn how to code in a container, not as well.
Also,
Nobody does. All your programs that are on your system aren't either installed are not installed with pip or with a container. They're installed by your package manager.
Yeah.
My Python, I do a lot of Python stuff. I do pip installs for application.
Well, but do you install stuff with apt or whatever package manager you use? And do you install anything Python related? You probably do. And then
but some applications are installed through pip.
Yeah, some of the AUR packages probably use pip.
I just installed one called Exodus Bundle, which was installed with pip. I did that about 3 weeks ago on it.
I never used a pip to install anything except for in a virtual machine just to test what something does. But I would never allow on my main systems to use pip to install anything. I don't trust the security of it.
They call it pip and pray because of the conflicts with other.
I like that.
I don't install anything with pip either except libraries. That's what pip is for. Actually, it's libraries. Just like npm is for libraries, or I don't know, NuGet on C#, or I don't know what, or Cargo on Rust. Take your pick.
Or Cabal with Haskell.
Yeah, they are for to install libraries. That's what they are for. They are not for to install applications. If there is the ability to do it, because what is a program then library with an executable front and a tiny bit additional, nothing more.
Well, you're going to have to learn to love the Node.js package manager npm, aren't you, with your new job?
Well, npm is the least problematic
npm
thing about
is the
JS.
best programming tool ever made.
No,
I don't know. When I install stuff, it seems like they always fail when I try to install anything with npm. I don't know if that's just me having bad luck with certain things.
Things seem to work. It's the least problematic thing about JS is definitely npm. For JS, I'd rather take npm than without it. Even though I still would rather see something like Cargo be used and a Rust language than JS.
Yeah.
Well,
we all would like to have that, but the trend is going towards a different direction. I've seen websites on Next.js only with history changes.
Next and Vue.js.
It's horrific, Everything's clogged up. Everything is clogged up. There's files and hidden directories everywhere. Nobody knows why something happens, and everything's hacky.
What are we talking about here?
JavaScript and horrible
JavaScript.
We're talking about
all the different frameworks.
beauty.
It's all fragmented.
Let me tell you the story of JavaScript and Node.js. I installed development environment for Vue.js, one of the hip frameworks right now. And when I installed, I started by their instructions, latest npm, latest Node.js. It didn't work. Had to go to LTS. Okay, I get that. It's the latest. So I went to npm, went to LTS. I installed, and I got to looking, and when when all is done, it writes you how many were installed and all that. And one of the segments is how many packages have vulnerabilities. And I got out of 300 packages, 143 vulnerabilities. And I was like, good thing I installed this in a Docker container.
Yeah. Someone in the chat was asking how to launch Jitsi. He says, I can't find a link. The files are in /Etsy/Jitsi. It'll depend on what distribution you're on. They may throw some configuration files in /Etsy, but that's not where the binary will be. What I suggest is, unless you're running a rolling release distribution, the Jitsi, if it's in the repository, will be old anyway. Go grab the app image. Just do a search for Jitsi app image. Yeah. Or you could just run it straight in the browser.
Works. I use a Flatpak.
I use a browser. It works.
So what I've always used is the app image because I only use Jitsi basically once a month. I don't want it to be a part of my package manager. I just got the app image, so it's always there for me.
I downloaded and got it installed and was up in less than a minute. Right?
No.
It's perfect use for app images.
Yeah, and we had aliens. Can't get the audio working, so I won't join this time. Yeah, the audio with all these web conferencing clients like Jitsi and Zoom and Discord, they can be a mess. If you've got multiple sources for audio input and output, they often pick the wrong one. Usually, what I would do is go into Pulse Audio volume control and see exactly what source is there for the input, if that was the problem.
Or even
I have the same
Even
problem
better.
too sometimes. And what I do is in the Jitsi, I use a web browser, and in the Jitsi, the control down at the bottom, in the microphone, there's a up arrow. And then I switch to another input and then back to the microphone input, and that usually fixes it.
I mean, if you ultimately want to solve all your audio issues with this conferencing software, just start using Pipewire and start using the jack tools to set up your audio manually.
Yes, yeah, because when you have a whole lot of audio inputs, jack is so easy.
Well, yeah, after you figure out what the heck you're looking at.
Like literally the worst thing you can tell somebody that doesn't know anything about jack, like if they got a lot of stuff plugged in, don't switch to the jack server because you're gonna be fighting with that for hours.
Yeah, and then you also have the problem with there are two packages that are called jack. One is the audio something, and there is a CD repair also.
Well, I'm
called
saying
jack.
that you use Pipewire. You use Pipewire.
Pipewire in conjunction with jack, but it's still jack.
So when when you're running Pipewire as your sound server, you can use the jack tools to manage your Pulse Audio as sound sources.
Yeah, audio on Linux. Maybe 2022 is going to be year of Linux on the desktop with good audio. That's all I want. I just want good audio. I don't want much. I don't want Wayland. I don't care about the display server anymore. Can we just have a good audio server?
Really, I just want real-time pulse.
Real-time pulse. That would be.
I just want real-time pulse.
That would be incredibly taxing.
It would be.
On this,
but you know what?
For people that don't need it.
My computer can handle it. So I just want real-time pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a correct pulse is so important that all ambulances has a device that is measuring it.
But what about Pavu control? I'm using this and I don't have
usually
a lot of problems with it. It sometimes selects the wrong sources, but I've got 4 or 5 different audios, inputs and outputs.
But then you're putting your faith in your Pulse Audio config files to actually work.
Sometimes, and Pavu control, usually you can just go in there and adjust the settings and everything works, but sometimes your actual input devices won't even be listed. And I have had this trouble where I have to kill Pulse and then restart the server.
Okay. No, I never had that before, but let's see.
If you ever have that problem, sometimes just the restart command for Pulse, what is it? Pulse space -K or whatever to restart it. Sometimes then all of a sudden it will magically find all those inputs and outputs that it couldn't before.
Hey guys.
Well, hi.
That sounds like Ben.
That is
It
Ben.
is. Unfortunately, on this new laptop, the webcam isn't working in Linux for some effed up reason.
Is that a new MacBook?
No. It's a Lenovo 5 Legion gaming laptop.
Ah, cool.
How's Jet?
Oh,
I don't have Gen 2 on it, Big Pod. I have LFS being installed on it.
Wow. He's compiling right now, Big Pod, while he's streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main reason why your camera's not working is because the Lenovo Legion laptops don't actually use a UVC compliant webcam.
Really?
Yeah.
So, is there a way to make it work, Josh, or no?
I think I saw it like one time many years ago, but I think there's like an actual Arch Wiki page on it.
Well, luckily I am compiling from within Arch.
There you go.
Yeah, I just don't know how to make it work within Arch to actually...
There's got to be a way. Surely somebody's worked that out.
I'm certain you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Alternatively, Logitech still makes the C920. They just call it a different name, but it's still a C920.
Yeah. Are you really going to pay $100 for a webcam for your laptop? I wouldn't.
Yeah, why
No,
not?
don't. You have a phone. You use your phone.
There
as a
you go.
webcam.
There
Like
you go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just use your
you-
phone. Or alternatively, you guys can use this.
I'm looking up... there's a guide for an Ubuntu thing on here. But...
I mean, if you sit there and you read it, you could probably figure out how to get it working on Arch Linux because it's a system D distribution. Like at most, you might need to change a couple package names.
Well, LFS doesn't really work well with systemd.
Well,
No.
You're always on your own here because Linux from scratch is basically you're on your own to begin with, which is why they give you a written manual. So go read the manual.
Yeah, true. Okay.
I'm still on the lookout for a laptop, so it's hard. There's like no proper hardware anymore that works with Linux.
I am not looking for a laptop. I'm waiting for a laptop.
You guys know it took me 3 months to get a home computer because I couldn't find a graphics card.
Yeah, that's true.
I couldn't find any graphics card that was powerful enough to do what I needed to do.
And normally priced.
Yeah.
That's not
I paid through the nose when I finally found one because I had to have it.
Why did you buy?
An NVIDIA 3060.
Okay.
Well, this is interesting, Derek. It has a 2060 in my laptop.
Ah, that's a nice laptop.
Not a bad card.
Yeah, usually the laptops are cheaper than the cards themselves. I've seen deals like that.
Yeah, it's just crazy because NVIDIA is making a ton of money. Like they can't keep up with.
Actually, no. Actually, a lot of it is because a lot of scalpers are buying them and reselling them. And prices just go to the roof. And of course, there is not enough. There is too much demand for what kind of amount in the market.
And I didn't want to buy an NVIDIA card. I wanted to buy an AMD card, but all the good AMD cards at the time, I couldn't find any of them except for secondhand. People wanting 3 times as much.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get completely screwed like that.
That is first hand because that hand that's buying it to you is actually a scalper.
Yeah, they mined some Bitcoin on that thing before they repackaged it and tried to pass it off as
not necessary. Not necessary. They just bought it and resold it to you because why not?
No.
3 times the price. That's what.
Well, really,
it's a tulip speculation.
GPUs don't really lose life when you will run mining like that, as long as the temperature is regulated properly.
Standard is to undervolt them even.
No. Someone was asking, why do I need a graphics card? Well, if you want a display connected to your computer, you typically are going to need... Like, if you want monitors...
Well, that and most onboard graphics, you maybe get like an HDMI port, and there might be a Type-C port that's...
You might get 2 ports, but you won't get 4. So I need 3 monitors, and your motherboard's never going to have more than 2.
Well,
so
that is why my new laptop will not have a GPU.
Yeah.
My current laptop doesn't have a GPU, and I kind of miss having a GPU.
It will have GPU, just not the dedicated one.
And the NVIDIA 3060 that I have at my home computer, it's a fine card. The only thing, I just hate dealing with the NVIDIA drivers.
Yeah.
Because
that one is not too bad.
I've already had a driver issue. Well, it may not necessarily be NVIDIA's fault because I am running an Arch-based distribution.
Yes,
but
it is NVIDIA's fault. Last few versions.
I was giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Suck.
Okay, go ahead.
Last few versions of drivers suck as hell.
Uh,
I
was waiting for the Linus Torvalds moment there from Big Bud. He didn't go there.
Look, as much as they suck, they're still
Yeah.
better than AMD. AMD suck even more.
The NVIDIA drivers are horrible on Linux. The proprietary drivers.
Drivers are horrible. Graphics cards
Yeah.
themselves are good.
Yeah.
Problem is with AMD is the other way around.
AMD's everything's built into the kernel and it just always works. You never have a driver crap out on you. You know.
If you
And
want
that's
to more
that is
stuff, you need
because
a
the-
professional driver.
And that is because the AMD drivers are better because
Open
they are freely
One
licensed.
version is open. They have two versions. Certain features are locked behind.
Yeah, they have the proprietary
driver.
version too.
The
Yeah.
pro driver, the professional driver. It is proprietary.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, though, the proprietary driver really doesn't offer any real benefits over the open source driver, so nobody really uses the
depends on what
There
you're
proprietary.
are some-
And
there are
but then
some-
also Nvidia came 1 or 2 years ago. There was talk about it at least that they were going to start to require that drivers that were going to interface with their devices had to be signed by Nvidia in order to operate. So if you didn't use the proprietary drivers, you got nothing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And somebody
why
in the
it's
chat was asking, so just buy AMD then? Well, that was the point. That's what I wanted. I couldn't get, right now is a really tough time. Like if you wanted to build a workstation, a tower, good luck getting any of the parts that you want.
And the shortage is going to go on till the end of 22 at least. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not in sight.
Yeah.
Aero 23.
It's really tough right now.
I can't even find DDR3 memory with ECC.
RAM is tough. RAM is.
I
With
can't
what?
wait.
With DDR3 with ECC?
Yeah,
I used to have some. I
well, I
haven't.
could use some if you can find some.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, Murray give you a real good price on that,
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, I picked up a new server. It's
I-
I picked up a new server and it takes DDR3 memory, which I have nothing of.
I had a Z400 computer, 2010 era, had ECC memory, and it was so early it didn't have UEFI in the boot sequence or anything like that. It was a first core i7 generation computer, and it weighed a ton. But I'll see if I can find some. It had 12 gigs of ECC RAM in it. I'll see if
Well,
I
that
can
would be
get-
appreciated because it's 10 more. That's 12 more than what's currently in there.
I should
A
have
friend of-
16 spare ones too. I have to search. I do have a box of old hardware.
Yeah,
Just
a
don't
friend
let
of
me
mine
forget that.
had to suddenly find a RAM for his. He has a 4U rack server with 24 drive base, and he has 20 drives in it. He uses it for media storage, and it's his Plex server. And he has 8 of his RAM modules died. And 3 or 4 days ago, he said that one of his friends just happened to have 6 of those types that he needed laying around, and he didn't need it.
Yeah, that's one thing with my home computer too. I wanted 32 gigs of RAM in that machine. Just the extra RAM is good for video rendering and things like that. I was like, you know what? When I got this computer like 3 years ago, RAM was cheap. So I was like 16 gigs, 32 gigs. It's not going to be that big of a difference in price. Oh yeah, it was. So I went with the 16 gigs.
Yeah, and the server that my friend, he has 96 gigs of RAM in that thing.
No.
DT,
Yeah.
you actually might want to switch the GPUs from the one you have currently to the one you have at home.
I don't know. This one.
If you don't want to, if you're okay with it, because I think that the 3060 is better than the Radeon 7 you have now.
Well, the
For-
GPU acceleration cadence
for the work
better
you
for
do.
sure.
For the work you do.
Yeah, it'll depend on the application. Yeah.
For the work you do, it is, I believe, better. for the application of work that you do, the video content creation, where AMD sucks majorly.
Well, the one thing good about this particular card, the AMD card I have, is the 16 gigs of onboard memory.
Yeah.
That's nice with rendering.
But do you use that? No, you don't, because you don't do
Not really. Right, right, yes, right.
I moved into this house 2.5 years ago, and in part of packing, preparing to move, I cleaned out a lot of the old hardware, and I found in a box, I forgot that I have two ISA graphics cards. One of which said on the box that it was it had a humongous 1 megabyte of RAM.
Yeah. As far as the Caden Live rendering, because we've got somebody needs headphones on.
Echo.
Let's see, who can we mute?
See, I don't think.
No, you're wearing headphones.
Yeah.
I guess they muted themselves. Okay. Yeah, I haven't noticed a difference, Big Pod, between the two cards because I have rendered video on both machines using Caden Live, and it seems about the same for either one, so I'm not going to bother swapping out the cards. The one thing that it probably would change things on, OBS, like streaming, but I don't do enough streaming for that to be a big deal.
Well, really, and you got a Threadripper in that computer. X264 really isn't all that demanding.
So I actually don't even use the card to stream my graphics card. I use the Threadripper. Right now, this is all CPU. I'm not even using the GPU.
I was once a part of a stream that basically put 3090 NVIDIA 3090 to its knees. So with OBS.
You can do that.
That was a pretty complicated stream.
Yeah. Oh, I can bring my machine with 64 gigs of RAM and all. I can bring it crashing down if I set the settings in OBS right, or if I'm doing something big and something like Blender, I can use up 64 gigs of RAM like that. Right?
It was a game stream, and
yeah,
we optimized the hell of it because otherwise it was lagging as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was four players on same stream, so it had to do 3 streams incoming, then all the background, the names, the transparencies. It basically brought 3090 to its knees. The top end NVIDIA model of the current generation.
That and NVIDIA also really limits the consumer cards when it comes to like the GPU encoder. When you're doing something like that, you do need to like spend the money on like the workstation GPU.
It will help.
Yeah, you probably would want it like a Quadro.
Well, it would help actually because
no, it wouldn't because it was just one process. The difference is between the Quadro and the 3090, the equally part 3090 and Quadro, is that NVIDIA allows you only three processes on it at the same time on the RTX. That's the difference. That's the only real difference for compute purposes. For that application.
But here's the problem: on Linux, would the drivers be okay to where it would make sense to buy an expensive card like that and run on Linux?
Yeah, they are. The person who
the workstation GPUs probably actually work better than the consumer stuff on Linux.
we did some testing and no, it wasn't any better. 3090 is pretty performant. It does a lot of good work. Problem was the workload we threw at it was that demanding. Because there was so much to do, it basically we brought it to the knees.
And someone in the chat was asking me to try Sony Vegas inside Wine. No. Well, there's 2 problems with that. For one, Sony Vegas is not free and open source software, so I'm not going to use it. The other thing is try anything inside Wine. That's also a no because I hate
Why
wine.
would you
I'm
run
not gonna.
Sony Vegas ever?
Yeah.
Those who run Sony Vegas should probably think about
Because
the launch.
I'm pretty happy rendering my videos, editing my videos, and things like Kden Live and Blender right now, which are free and open source, and they get the job done. So.
Yeah, I made 2 documentaries a couple of years ago using Kden Live.
Yeah.
It's unstable and it crashed a lot, but it's just a matter of saving often.
It's one of those things. That's why I was trying Blender here in the last 8-10 videos I've made. I've edited them all on using Blender. It's because Kden Live it updates all the time, right? And every couple months they push out a new release, and things that I'd gotten used to using that were working fine are now broken. Things that were broken in that previous release now are fixed, and it's like I never know what to expect. With each new version of Kden Live, and it's frustrating when I'm sitting here.
How long it would take for Kden Live to burn you?
Yeah. But Blender, their video editor, doesn't have a whole lot of features, but the features it has, they work. Right? So it's like right now I just want something stable where I know when I open it and start editing a video.
So how long until you start making 3D animated videos?
I don't know enough about Blender 3D animation to do much with it right now. I mean, I played around with it a little bit, but obviously it's not something I do a lot of.
Okay, so 2023 then.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that interests me. Like I wouldn't mind learning a little bit about it, but it's not something like I'm not the kind of person that would spend all day, making 3D animations or things like that. It doesn't sound like fun to me. It's kind of like the people that do gaming, or they're doing game engines, sitting there. That wouldn't interest me. Ultimately, I like the content I make. It's got to be something that I would enjoy doing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard about regular people doing good video editing. It was in 2004 or 5. There was a debate in Norway about changes to our equivalent to the copyright law. And one of the speakers showed I think it was a 2 or 3 minute long video that 2 guys made a couple of years before that, where they had shut down, or it looked like they had shut down one of the lanes on the highway in Los Angeles, where a jumbo jet was doing an emergency landing on top of a car and so on. And they used that in order to get a job at inside Hollywood. And they used $500, I think it was, in production. And
nice.
He said that the empty highway direction they got by having a camera taking pictures every second or every 2 seconds for 6 hours. And eventually they got pictures of every part of the highway without
I've always wondered that. Yeah, like you see these like post-apocalyptic movies where they'll take a big city like New York or London or something, and it'll be empty streets, no people, no cars. And like, how in the hell did they take a picture like that? Because you're never gonna have a empty city like that. It does make you wonder how creative some of these people have to get with the shots that they take to pull some of this stuff off in the movies.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't. They just blend in with the regular traffic. One of the well-known instances is, I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was Dustin Hoffman and another guy walking across the road, and there is a taxi coming who is not part of the production, who are interfering and keeping in part with the role. Dustin Hoffman slammed on the hood. I'm walking here.
I just watched Blade Runner the other day. It's a 1982 movie. It's set in the early 21st century. And right now, according to them, we have flying cars.
Right.
We have androids, and we have civilizations on other planets.
Well, one of them might be true in about 10, 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, we should have already flown to Jupiter, according to 2010, the sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, Jupiter should have already collapsed into a star. Spoiler alert, if you haven't.
Doesn't make sense. Okay.
Oh, DT. One thing I do need to comment on your videos: you need to add a little bit more contrast to your videos because you are way too dark.
Okay.
Just thought to let you know.
All right.
I was watching.
Have a little humor and more jokes.
Yeah, the camera settings for the last few videos have been changing a lot because something got messed up along the way.
When I was watching Blade Runner, I was watching it at the coffee shop from I have the file on my home computer, and I was using zero-tier networking to access it. And it was kind of interesting because I had the file manager. I was scrolling through my files at home in the file manager. It was kind of jerky, but I could scroll down. But I'd select the video and watch it, and it was like watching it at home. It was in real time. I could move the slider back and forth, and whenever I move it to any place, it was instant. By the time I let the slider go, I was watching that particular film. And that's on Wi-Fi at the coffee shop. And I can't understand how it can be so fast on that. It's a 2.5 gigabyte file or something like that.
No.
Easy.
How?
When you actually use that, you actually downloaded most of the movie by the time you.
No, I was doing it right away, just before.
Then it actually is searching the movie file to actually specifically. It doesn't actually download the whole file. It just basically looks for where is that specific point and just places it, and it goes right away because it's just streaming directly down.
So zero-tier is kind of good that way. I started using it more.
Zero-tier thing. That's the video program you used. So that's what caused that. If you use a standard VPN or if you just connect it directly to it, would work the same way.
So I'm using zero-tier more and more. I'm using with Livebook now. Livebook, I wanted a central location for all my development, and they had a S3. Instead of selecting the local file, you could select cloud, so you could have your stuff stored on the cloud. I couldn't get that to work. I couldn't get it to work, so I used zero-tier in the local file. So I've got my files at home, and I can access it anywhere, and I don't have to pay for an S3 cloud server, and I get the equivalent of that. It's good enough for flat files and folders and things, at least anyway. I'm not sure about larger stuff, but for home use, I don't use for business, but for home use like this, it's working really well for me. I'm using it all over the place now. That's kind of good. Anyway.
All right. Yeah, more color grading talk in the chat. Also, somebody wants me to add reverb to my voice. No.
Yes. Everything needs maximum reverb and maximum distortion.
I actually, with the mixer back there, I could add a little reverb or echo. Like I could make it kind of classy. Like it'll sound like I'm talking in a large room or a church or a cathedral or something. It doesn't have to be crazy reverb.
Have you ever seen the electromechanical device that actually produces that reverb? It's a steel spring that you basically conduct the signal, which is like basic conduct with the frequencies. You push it through a steel.
You run the electrical signal through.
You run the electrical signals through a feather spring, and it's a really gnarly instrument as well. Every synthesizer needs to have one. With maximum wetness in your case, it would, maybe some horror movie of GNOME. I don't know.
I like it. Yeah.
I remember I'm a sound engineer, and I run the sound at the big concert and so on. We did our church had a concert in one of the big churches in Trondheim. The effects that we are modern effects that we are using were made primarily to replicate the sound of the church room. And so we were doing some sound checking, and we were 4 sound engineers helping to set up. And during the sound check, one of them said to the one doing the checking that he commented that he was using too much reverb. He had to tone it down, and he was. Then we laughed. We didn't use any effects of any kind because we didn't need to.
Yeah, I don't like doing any kind of effects. Like on my mixer, I've got about 15 or so presets where I could make it sound like I'm in a really live room or something that's really dead or whatever. I don't fool with that. No. If I find that something is off after I record something, I'll just fire up Audacity or one of the forks of Audacity now. And I had a real problem with the video I did yesterday because things had changed on one of my microphone settings to where after I recorded it, I realized the gain was crazy high. And I had to clean that audio up as best as I could. It still sounds pretty bad. I mean, it's okay.
It did sound different.
The gain was crazy. I don't know who turned that knob. Somebody came in here and cranked it.
Your cat.
No, I mean, there's no cats here, but at home, yeah. That's one of the things I've noticed with camera settings, microphone settings, the audio server stuff, is sometimes buttons get pushed, sliders get moved, and I know I didn't touch it. Somebody sneaks in here at night and unplugs things, plugs them back in.
Might be a cleaning service.
No, they can't. They don't have a key to it.
Yeah, we have the same problem in the previous church that I attended, where we were doing some a weekend series of meetings, and we did a sound check and so on, and had the meeting, and then we just left everything as it was, the microphones and everything, and just came the next morning. And even doing the sound checking, and you always have to change something because just by having a change of how many people are in the room requires another type of setup. And
what I've learned here recently is, like with camera settings, audio settings, write all your settings down just in case somebody comes in here and tears stuff apart and you got to put it all back together. You remember how you had it.
What?
Or I'll take a picture on my phone. Like I have a picture of that audio server back there, just so if somebody goes in there and decides to take the EQ and just move it all around, okay, what was it all set to? Because I've got no idea unless I took a picture or wrote it down.
Yeah, the last 10 years I didn't have to bother. We didn't have to bother with any of that because we bought a digital sound mixer. And then you can have in the sound mixer that we had in my former church, we could have 250 different setups before we had to manually change something during a meeting. But before doing that, I remember there was one meeting where we had 2 worship teams that were going to perform. And they needed to have different monitor settings. So I had some white tape that I taped over the monitor, and I draw a picture and I draw around where the settings were, and I placed it on. So I had so I had the sound check of the last one first, and so the soundboard at that meeting was highly special.
Yeah. Ben has no sound.
At least now has video.
Yeah, sound is still compiling, Ben.
Entirely possible.
Now, someone in the chat was asking about Spectre WM, my configs. I haven't played with my configs in a while. I don't know if they're still working, but there's my config from my .files repository on my GitLab.
But now Ben's camera is working.
Yeah, Arco has a Spectre WM version now, so you could always grab their config as well.
Yeah, I convinced like five IT savvy people to switch to Arco, and they all loved it. And it was basically initiated by you, DT. So
yeah, Arco seems to be gaining popularity, though. I mean, it's one of those things. I've never heard anybody try it and say, "Well, that was a bad distribution."
No.
Everybody seems to enjoy it.
It's stable. It's just darn stable.
Yeah. I like what they do with the installation process, the fact that you can pick all your window managers and applications and everything right there in their Calamaris installer. That's nice.
And I also dig Eric's philosophy of sharing knowledge while being respectful and not flaming.
Yeah, if you ever have a problem, you can probably find a video from Eric.
Yeah.
They're on the topic.
We have audio.
Well, I don't hear anything on your all's end, oddly enough.
Well, we hear you, Ben.
Yeah,
He can't hear us. Yeah, he can't hear.
Sounds like false audio to me.
I'll be right back.
You saying we can hear you was basically useless.
I know. That's why I said it.
Okay, so here's the one thing that Arco Linux does right. I can actually find a download button on their website. I still can't figure out how to download Endeavor.
A lot of people have the same criticism of Debian.
Yeah.
Because unless you want the main
True.
unless you want the main version, which is fine, but I usually want the mini ISO. Navigating to where that mini ISO is a nightmare. I've got to go like 12 pages deep into that thing.
Find out Google search.
Getting there, what are they called? The non-free ISO is
It's also a challenge.
also a challenge, yeah.
I've seen so many like archaeological age Debian servers that became exploited.
To be fair, the Debian project has a stated goal and an intended use case.
Oh,
And that's what they're providing their download link for. As much as it is to our own frustration, we should at least be happy that they produced a mini ISO or a non-free ISO.
Yeah, but still, your website. I know you started Debian in late 1993. Your website doesn't need to look like it started in late 1993. You could have a more manageable website or something that can be navigated easily.
.org, it doesn't look like it's 1993. It looks like it's 1994.
One site that used to be horrible to download was App Image
I
Hub.
don't know how to do
Yes.
And half the links were broken.
Yes.
And it was a horrible. If you go there now, it's as good as it gets. They've completely
I
redone
changed
it.
it to the speaker, but it's not doing anything.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Ben. Can you hear us? I doubt it. Let me mute Ben while he finishes his Linux from scratch compilation.
So I got my IT Christmas present 2 weeks ago, thanks to Hacker News. They have a program called Exodus Bundler, written in Python, installed with pip, but it takes an ELF binary, a pure binary, and creates a bundle with the binary and with all the dynamic libraries next to it. So you can package that up and run it self-contained without having to use what's on the system anymore. And that's perfect for me. It solves my problem with app images because you just move that bundle into the app image and point to it, and you've got all the dynamic libraries that package needs. So I had Exodus tool I had a bash code, an editor, Exodus tool to send Control F to the text editor, so the find box was there when you prop it up. And it ran, but then when it put it on Ubuntu 2010, it was missing a dynamic library. Move it over to Manjaro, it's missing a different dynamic library. So now I can bundle it all up in there ahead of time, and I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. And I went through about 200 command line apps in user bin, and it bundles them all up, and I took about a dozen of them and made app images, and they all work. Even some of the big programs like gthumb went in okay. So it can do a lot, but it's best for command line tools in there. So that solves just about all my problems with app images now. It opens up the door quite a bit.
Yeah. And you're right. App Image Hub was a horrible site. I still think it could be a lot better, but there was a time where it was hard to find working app images at all on that thing. Like every single one you try would be a broken link.
Yeah, that's right.
I think part of the problem is it's not really like a central hub the way like FlatHub is or Snapcraft is. They're going to find these links to like GitHub and GitLab, right? And they're adding it manually to App Image Hub.
Yeah,
I'm assuming somebody's
something like that.
Yeah. The problem is, unless somebody's really on top of that, that's a hard system to maintain.
yeah.
There's some automation steps you could do.
Yeah. I guess you could probably script something in some JavaScript, BigPod, and
No.
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 I can't see how anyone. The problem with front end programs, it's so fragmented. What you learn that somebody's on Vue.js and somebody's on React and whatever.
Right.
Your tool
One
change.
is on Angular, one is on Vue, one is on Nuxt,
At
one
least
is
you-
on React.
The Python you write 3 years ago is good today, and it's going to be good 3 years from now. You can
Well,
leverage
maybe
your
not.
knowledge.
If you write
React is still
Python
good.
Yeah,
because
but
it's
then you
made
go to
by-
a new shop and they're using Vue.js.
Yeah.
POSIX compliant shell never changes.
JS is also still good.
Yeah.
but
They're all
it's
good.
But you have to
There
learn.
is some new thing in JS now, and tomorrow there will be another new thing.
Ben took off his headphones. I think he's given up. I don't know.
Do I
No, he
sound okay
commented.
to y'all?
Yeah, okay, we've got Ben on microphone now.
Sorry, guys. It was I don't know what's up with that crazy microphone when it's just acting stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry
I don't
about
know why it's not compatible with Linux from scratch. I mean, that
No,
should have been one of the
that.
things.
That's not the problem. The problem is the webcam on the laptop is not working.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking to us from another system.
Yes, I'm talking to you from my tower. That's on
Oh,
Windows.
okay.
Wow, he logged into Windows.
I just
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
only got pissed off enough that I said, "Forget it."
Well, that's what's eventually going to happen. If you keep playing around with things like Gen 2 and Linux from scratch, it's going to drive you back to Windows. I don't want that to happen, Ben.
No,
I want you.
But
Be
you
smart.
know, the good thing is, Derek,
use
that I
Ubuntu.
installed Scratch package on LFS, so that way that doesn't happen to me.
No. Yeah,
Because,
Big
you know,
Pod had a
I
good
haven't
suggestion.
What?
Just install Ubuntu.
That might end up happening if I get
Or
this installed.
Zubuntu, since you like XFCE.
Well, I do have Storm OS
Not
booted
that.
as the live USB, so
Yeah.
regardless, you know, it doesn't matter what Linux I boot on this thing, the webcam just doesn't pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried looking up the model number of the laptop, the Lenovo 5 Legion, whatever, and then the numbers on the bottom. And I tried to see if there was a webcam tutorial or something like that out there on like Reddit or GitHub.
I
or
found
something
one
like that.
GitHub one.
You
but-
found one, Stefan?
Yeah, but not with a specific understandable thing about webcams. So that's the
Yeah,
only part
yeah.
that's not been tested there.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because
Yeah.
I guess I'll just have to take the webcam off the tower when I want to use it and win it.
And sometimes when you have weird problems, you go to GitHub and you find somebody created a script to fix it
Yeah, well, they did all
5
that-
years ago, and you wonder.
Yeah, they did all
if
that
it's-
for the discrete graphics and the inbuilt graphics,
Yeah.
so fixing that around. But, you know, what I did was inside the BIOS, they already had it set just to the NVIDIA card, so that's no problem. But the problem is that, you know, I guess I'm just going to have to grab my USB webcam when I don't want to boot into Windows on this machine. Because you see,
Yeah.
Well, one thing you could try, Ben,
yes,
is rather than using Arch Linux, you could try a distro that supports a libcamera, which would be like the only one that I actually know of off the top of my head is Fedora 35.
Well, he can put any
It's-
distro on a
it's-
USB stick and
well,
try it out before installing it.
It's a different camera library. It might just be that the
Yeah.
the
But the X
V4L
library is
tools
just not
don't
working.
support it. Yeah.
Yeah. what I would do, I would just try something on a USB stick first, and if your camera works, then install it. Because right now you're putting in too much work installing something and hoping it works. Well, try it out first.
And also there is the problem with many laptops have a physical button that you have to push. Sometimes it is a physical switch that you move, or often there is a touch button somewhere. That is
only on
obvious.
European models.
Even there now. I haven't seen one laptop that has a button to turn on the camera.
Well, this one does have a switch that you have to toggle on, but
yeah, some of them will have a kill switch.
Yeah, well, it is flipped into the on position, but I did find the driver that Josh was talking about in the AUR for Arch. Now, I don't know if Scratch Package actually has that in their repos, because they're all pulling from GitHub and their community contributed packages and that sort of thing.
Well, just read the package build and figure out where it's pulling the stuff from. Yeah,
because that could be easy. So, at worst case, I'll have to download the source from Arch and just get it that way.
I think we should just put it to a poll. Why don't we ask the YouTube chat? YouTube chat, what distribution should Ben install on his laptop that's not Linux from scratch?
Yeah,
give him some suggestions.
Let's put it to a vote.
Yeah, let's put it to a vote. My vote, and this is going to be a wild one. Slackware.
Slack?
Yes, Slackware.
That's not a big improvement from Linux from scratch.
No, it's not.
It's really not. And Gentoo wouldn't be either.
Yeah.
We can also put in the. We could also just put in the NixOS plug, because there has to be at least one.
Yeah, somebody in the chat did mention NixOS. They love the logo, so they're going to switch to Nix because of the.
That's not much of a help either.
Yeah. Well, somebody in the chat wrote Windows.
I see Venom Linux mentioned. I see Venom Linux. That's a spicy one.
Venom Linux.
Garuda.
Well, Garuda's a good candidate. It's Arch based.
Yeah, it breaks all the time.
Yeah, it does. It's got a lot going on.
I might just take Josh's suggestion, either do Fedora or Ubuntu.
Well, the main reason why I mentioned Fedora is because it uses the libcamera library. And it's different. It's a different library front end for the kernel. For the kernel.
That is true.
So that's why I'm saying at least give it a try. I'm not saying install it. Just see if there's something going on there. Because if that's working, we immediately just know that it's just a driver issue.
Yeah, doesn't also OBS deliver a driver with that virtual camera support for webcams?
V4L2 loopback.
Yeah.
That's true. But
I mean, that's pretty much on any Linux distribution, isn't it?
Yeah. That is a standard.
That's a standard package for anything that runs a camera, a webcam.
The problem with V4L2 is that the cameras have gotten way more complicated since V4 was created, and as a result, cameras are now being able to be more controlled by the host system in general, where you're getting exposed to shutter time settings and exposure and stuff like that. And V4 can't do that, which is why the Fedora project is actually developing libcamera as a front-end library.
Yeah. Well, I do see the libcamera Git package on Arch, and they do have a fork of that they're using.
You could do that. I don't know what it actually takes to set it up manually because I haven't done it.
Yeah. Well, I'm giving it a try on and they do list the dependencies that are needed that I think LFS does actually have in this package manager that I'm using. So I am going to try it, and if it doesn't work, then I'll try Fedora.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the end of the 2 hours here for the stream, so let's go ahead and get a last word from everybody. Everybody take a minute. Ben, obviously, I know a lot's on your mind right now, but you got anything you want to share with us before you?
Well, hopefully everybody had a nice Christmas this year, and hopefully everything gets sorted out for me. And I'll see you guys next month.
We hope, right?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Just depends if his computers can survive Linux from scratch.
Well,
if he has to, he can join us on Windows. It'll be fine.
Yeah, or if he doesn't want to use Windows, there's always a React OS.
Yeah. By the way, the vote Well, I tallied it up. They said Dev1 with OpenRC, Ben. So
Dev1. I don't know anything about that distro.
It's Debian, but old.
with OpenRC.
It's Debian like the good old days.
Well, this laptop would probably not work with that because it's a very new laptop.
Yeah, probably not. Big Pod, give us the last word, sir.
Huh. I don't know what to say. I'm happy that James Webb Space Telescope made it to space.
You beat me to it. Yes.
It was a scary launch.
I knew it was going to be some rocket talk.
Now, next 6 months of scary waiting for it to unfold.
Very good, Big Bud. Josh, you got anything for us?
Well, you guys know that I am the Gen 2 guy, but this stream is not coming to you from Gen 2, nor is it coming from Fedora. This stream today is coming to you from Slackware.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I'll be completely honest with you guys. I have no idea how this system works, and I'm just talking to you via the magic that is Firefox.
If you can figure, if you can figure out package management on Gen 2, Slackware is completely different. It's going to drive you crazy.
Of course,
it likely will.
It's going to be one of those things. You're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to get stuff installed, and it's going to be years out of date.
It's fine. I'm on Slackware current right now, so I'm not exactly out of date. I'm using a 5.14 kernel.
All right. Well, hopefully we see Josh next month if Slackware works out.
If you don't see him, we know that something went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right, Murray.
Well, I've been working with Elixir again for last month, and one of the things
cool.
I came across a video. I've watched about 50 videos from there. There's one called Jump to Hyperspace. It's an excellent feature about the future of computing and how sensors are going to change everything. They mention that 75% of computing will not be in the cloud or servers in 2025. There's a move to move the computing as close to the source of the data as possible.
To edge, yeah. There's some move, but won't happen.
Oh, I think it will. There's Walmart. 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart, and they're quietly putting in data centers in a lot of these Walmarts.
Yeah.
Yes,
To
for internal data,
Yeah.
for stuff like cameras and AI, nothing more.
And they're talking
Isn't
about. They're talking. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say what they're putting in the Walmart. That's not going to be
Public
like stuff that's public facing, right? That's
That's
all going to be
Data center, yeah.
right.
It's
Okay.
it's called edge data center. It's basically a couple of computers. All it does, their cameras connected, and it does local compute, so you don't have to transfer those video feeds into the cloud. Nothing more, nothing less. It's
Because Walmart records a ton of video.
and
Right,
they
this is-
use some AI to do some processing and tell them stuff.
You're talking about thousands of stores, and the stores themselves have tens of thousands of square feet of space they're recording. It's
Computing that stuff would be hard,
Right.
much as transferring.
They were mentioning that the latency is important. They're trying to get everything. Apparently, 8 milliseconds latency is some sort of key point to try to get processing done under that on it. So that's pretty good. And so my lecture's going okay. I didn't do as much as I would. This month I hope to be doing a lot of coding. So next month I'll know tell you a bit more. I did parse proc-CQ info. I got that into keywords set in Elixir, and I can subscript it. So I'm beginning to learn how to parse things in Elixir, which is okay.
Yeah.
And then thanks again. Enjoyed everything.
And I think I found the jump to hyperspace video. I will link that into the YouTube chat for everybody, for those of you interested. And that is from the Elixir conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. The jump to hyperspace, I guess it's a conference talk. All right. Yeah, I may check that out. All right. Soul Blue.
Yeah. I'm having a nice Christmas. I'm live alone.
That's good.
There is almost a foot of snow in my driveway, so tomorrow I have to fire up the snow mover. But and we were talking about the video cards earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I would, under no circumstances, when I'm the one buying, getting, I would at any cost stay away from NVIDIA, even if that means not upgrading my system. So, because of the proprietary driver. So, and I would rather use the built-in Intel card if possible. But I don't do a lot of heavy machinery or encoding and so on. And if I did, I would use some type of an AMD card.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Solbu.
And also having, I hope people having a good Christmas for the rest of the week. And it is a Christmas and not just another holiday, even if you don't like the name. It is based on an event that happened 2,000 years ago. Whether or not you believe if he is who he said he was, that is another debate. But it's in changing the name because you don't like the character. That's cheating, I think. But yeah.
Because you.
So, yes, I'm having some good feelings out there now.
All right, appreciate it. Stefan, you want to give us a last word?
Yeah, well, thanks for hanging out here and providing this platform, DT. And just wanted to add that this background has been solely set to not fulfill just bad prophecies, though I hope Arch is going to update daily. And let's see. Hope you all have a good upcoming 2020 and
2022. We don't want to go back to 2020. That was a bad year.
Yeah, 2022 actually. Yeah, we've got lost in space. I don't know. Well, thanks anyway, and
All right. Well, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys that hung out on camera. We had some people that joined and then dropped off. Obviously, some of them were compiling Linux from scratch, so that caused some issues. We had some Pulse Audio issues with Aliens in the chat. He couldn't join us because he never could get a working microphone. Jean-Michel, who's usually with us, couldn't actually be here today because of the holidays. And I want to thank the YouTube chat for hanging out. Good discussion there. And I'm going to show you some names of the patrons that could not be here. So I'm going to show you some names on the screen, those of you watching the stream. And other than that, guys, wave bye to YouTube.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Has an option to install all the things, so guess what I selected?